All right, thank you, everybody. I'd like to call to order the October 21st Environmental Matters Committee meeting. For the record, all of the members are present and virtually anyway. Alderman Arnett and Alderwoman Tierney. I entertain any motions regarding approval of the agenda.
Move approval of the agenda.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, any motions regarding the minutes?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, and next up we have a number of appointments. So first up is Hillary present?
Robert Shapiro.
The first up is Robert Shapiro, Board of Port Wardens. And
Hillary said she would be on. Oh, she just came on.
And so Mr. Shapiro, I want to welcome you to the committee.
Thank you.
And just wanted to give you a chance to, express some of your. It looks like this is your first time appointment to this board. So what exactly interests you in this and what your background is and what you may hope to accomplish?
Sure. So I've been a city resident since, started in 91 in summers, but I officially moved here in 94. I lived down on Tucker Street, 311, but we lived on Tolson for the prior 22 years. Actually 20 years prior to living on Tucker. I haven't done that much actually with or for the city other than live here and raise a family here and all the rest. I own a computer company. We've been in business actually 22 years. We're right here in West Annapolis. We're the lower level of the Jack Martin building. But I'm very heavily involved at Annapolis Yacht Club. I'm the fleet captain. I happen to know boats pretty well. I started their year-round sailing program. I have my U.S. captain's license. I actually have a degree in natural resource management from the University of Florida, and I actually have never used it other than what might be involved with the junior program at AYC. When we built that, we started with a 60-person summer program, and by the time I left in 99, we had around 400 kids per summer, and also adding the high school program, which we also were the ones who got Anne Arundel County Public Schools to actually start allowing high school sailing. And so sort of good at bringing things to fruition and seeing things through. I'm finally at the point with my company where everyone that works for me does a fabulous job, and I have a little bit more bandwidth to do things outside of just building a family. My son's was supposed to be in college, but he's taking a gap year. My daughter's second to last year at Key. So I actually have bandwidth. And of all the things that are involved that are with the city that I think I could help with and be good at, it would be the Port Wardens Committee. I mean, I understand docks. I understand vessels. I happen to have 5 of them myself. I'm a little addicted. Big and small and sail and power and everything else in between. So it's sort of something that I think is in my wheelhouse and I could contribute to.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And I don't know, your one reference here from 47 Williams Drive is a little questionable.
Well, I was going to say all 3 pretty questionable.
Yeah, sorry.
Just kidding. So yes, Alderman Arnett.
No, I was just going to say it was really great till we got to these references, and they're pretty shaky.
Yeah,
you guys are mean.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we recommend approval of this appointment to the City Council.
And do I have a second? I'll second it since I know Alderwoman Tierney is trying to multitask.
Yeah, I strongly second that.
Okay. And thank you again, Mr. Shapiro. Your background sounds well suited, and glad to hear that you're
But that was the second.
Had a little more room here with.
Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you, Ellie.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good. Thank you. All right. So,
Thanks.
all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And thank you for taking the time to be here with us, Mr. Shapiro. We look forward to working with you.
Should I stay? Is this like, should I stay or should I mean, I'm just up to,
If you're smart, you would go.
okay. Yeah. Either that or I'm doing a Clash song.
Okay. No,
Okay, so
good.
no, seriously, should I mean, is this like, is this a meeting I would attend otherwise, or I would only attend?
Hillary will be
No, these are just.
touch with you.
Ellie, you're breaking up a lot.
Yes, Mr. Shapiro, I'll be in touch with you about next.
Okay, that's what
Yeah, the next step will be going to the full city council.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. All right, so next item we have is, let's see, we have reappointment of Trudy McFall to the Conservancy Board.
Now, who is this woman?
Does she happen to be on the, this is just a reappointment, so she doesn't need to attend, but.
Yeah. I move we recommend.
Okay.
I second that, if you can hear me.
We can now. Yeah, thank you, Ellie. Ms. Ratrovich, do you have anything to just add for the record in terms of Ms. McFall's?
I do not. I imagine that you're all familiar with Ms. McFall. She's a resident of Ward 2. She was appointed in 2014 and was recommended for continuation on the board by staff and chair.
Excellent. And all those in favor of recommending reappointment of Trudy McFall to the Conservancy Board, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And next one is the reappointment of Meg Hosmer to the Annapolis Conservancy Board.
Move we recommend favorably.
I second that.
Any further discussion? Hillary, how long has she been on the
She was
board
also
now?
appointed in 2014, and she is a resident of Alderwoman Tierney's ward. She's a Ward 1 resident.
Oh, good. All right. So all those in favor of recommending favorably, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Last one. Oh, that's it for the nominations.
No, it's Dr. Nash is being nominated for planning and zoning.
It looks like it doesn't.
No.
I accept.
Good.
Volunteer.
Cool.
She's volunteering. Can I ask a question for Hillary? It's sort of a little digression. Do we have any vacancy on the Maritime Advisory Board?
I don't believe so. Let me check really quick.
Yeah, that just because I thought we were weak on Ward 1 representation, and I have a candidate, but we can talk later.
Okay, I'll look it up and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And thank you, Mr. Ratovich. I think that's all we need from you. And next up, we have a developmental update from Plan and Zoning. Dr. Nash, I see opening up your update right now.
Hello, everyone. All right. So, here, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this month, we had some projects approved. 107 Forbes Street, the site design was final. Sorry, not the site design, but the building permit itself was final. So I see that shows up wrong on my chart, but so that project is complete. We have the opinion for 110 compromise adopted. They've gone to HPC for a pre-app. Oh, no, sorry, 110 compromise. They're in the process of applying for building permits, we think. let's see, we have an appeal for 424 4th that we haven't done a lot with because there's a long line to Board of Appeals. Thomas Woods. So the Kitty Academy wanted to go to the site on Forest Drive. They've now found a site on West Street, which works a lot better for them. And so the owner has put in permits for townhouses, which was what the site was originally approved for on Forest Drive. And we're reviewing those.
Would there be any MPDUs on that?
Well, there would be, except they want to revise their applications so there's only 9 units, so they don't have
isn't
to
it under
provide
11
MPD.
units, so it wouldn't be MPDU?
It's 10 or more.
Oh, it is 10 or more. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So they're looking to change their site plan a little bit, unfortunately.
Sally,
Changing it just to avoid the MPDU?
I think so. That's my understanding.
hate when that happens. Sally, can you hear me? It's Ellie.
Yes.
110 Compromise Street. What's the building permit for? To start interior construction?
Right.
Or
Interior fit out.
oh, okay, that's good news then. That's for
When we get the permit.
Okay, so that's for the restaurant.
You're breaking up here.
It would be for the restaurant when we get the permit. We might have lost her.
Yeah, I can't. So, Dr. Nash, yeah, just a little bit more on that one.
Oh, she's back.
Are you back?
I'm good. And I'm going through the Hudson back. Yeah, I think I have delay talking because I'm back and I'm fine. That's actually really good news. Fingers crossed.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so just going back to that Thomas Woods for a moment. I mean, it's disappointing to hear that they're going to do that just to get around, likely just to get around the MPDU. I know this is a little bit off topic here, but what exactly do you think is about that program is driving them away? Just the difficulty of selling those MPDUs or the low profit margin on those units?
Yeah, I think it is probably not worth it to have to build another unit. The costs associated with building just one unit to sell at lower than market rate is not worth it.
Okay.
You have to have enough other units to help you absorb the cost.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I'll leave that for the housing committee to get into if they want to. But I guess that's good for the environment. Hopefully that'll mean less impervious surface, unless I guess they've already cleared everything they would need with this. I guess they won't have to clear any more of the lot.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah,
because
maybe
they're not modifying their approved site plan.
Okay, so that includes the grading plan, or did they ever get as far as a grading plan?
Let's see. They do have a grading permit that was approved. I'm not sure the extent to it, but I think it was for the whole site.
And was that that was it looks like 2015, or at least it has a GRD 15 number. Is that, do they have to come back for a new one? Is that still valid or expired? Or
I'll check on that. I mean, we were working with them pretty much this whole time for Kitty Academy, and Kitty Academy had intended to keep that permit alive. So I think it's been extended, but I'll double check on that.
Okay. Yeah, it might be nice. I mean, they might have additional potential to, if they have more room for new stormwater management, if they had to rearrange that at all.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry to.
Sorry. Okay, let's see. Newtown 20, we're reviewing the building and grading permits. We're pretty close to the first round of revisions for both of those, and our revisions aren't major, so feel pretty good about getting that out soon, which is important for their financing. We have, oh, yes, Ross?
Well, how many market rate units are they going to have there? Do you know?
I think they're going to have one market rate.
So we're basically building back in kind the same thing we just tore down. It just feels to me like that's not the right way to go with public housing, but it's a little late in the game to raise this. But thinking about it across the city, I mean, it really feels like the only thing that the Housing Authority can afford to do is replace in kind all of the units that are causing us so much trouble now.
Well, I think for Harbor House and Eastport Terrace, they're looking at a lot of different options and different programs that HUD has to help with the financing, so they can be a little bit more creative with the financing and what the options might be there. So, I feel like the new executive director has some good ideas about where to take those new developments.
Yeah, and it's not really your responsibility, but I think it is the council's responsibility. This is one way we can have an impact on public housing. I was in an interesting conversation early this morning, though, where someone was comparing our public house experience to the county experience. And the major difference, because they have highly concentrated units, is the property management in the county is so much better than what we have in the city. And they don't have nearly the crime rates and other adverse circumstances that we seem to have. But it still seems to me that putting back in place the same things that have been a problem for all these years doesn't feel like smart planning. And planning is one place where we can have some control over public housing.
Well, I would say the main difference between public housing in the city and the county is that the county has a lot more age-restricted units in public housing. They have very few family-based projects, which is where you tend to have the most problems. I mean, even in the city, our age-restricted projects, you probably haven't even ever heard of them because there's so few problems there. So it's really a function of the county had for a long time refused to add more of the family-based and just took some age-restricted here and there. But compared to the percentage that we have, it's, not even comparable. I mean, they do have a very good housing authority as well, but
they do.
We have good people. We have good property management aside from hack up for our low-income housing projects. And, there's a lot of problems that having family housing cause beyond all of those issues. So.
Well, thank you for the digression. I think we need to be thinking about this, colleagues on the council, when and if we ever get to Eastport Terrace and Harbor House, because, and Robinwood, the two places where BG&E has actually installed monitoring devices in the new streetlights are certainly big sources of, problems in the community.
Director Nash, I guess one other question on that. I mean, so especially with in Newtown, is there anything that we can do from an overall planning perspective? Because I know, the public housing is kind of shoved out there on the edge of our town with one way in, one way out. Is there anything else? Maybe it's too late at this point just because of how it's set up with the surrounding lots. But is there anything we can do from a larger planning perspective to kind of make it more, part of our community and to kind of avoid some of the issues we've had with public housing that's been set out on the edge of our town?
Yeah, we're pretty limited at this point. I think we will have more connectivity options for pedestrian connectivity with some of the trails and the street connections that they're building at Villages of Providence Point. But it's and there are going to be a lot of amenities that are so much nicer at the rebuilt Newtown 20 than what we have now. Also, there'll be management with Primrose, which tends to be stricter on some of their policies, which can result in safer places to live for people. So, I think it's going to be a lot better when it's rebuilt, no matter what at this point. But there's not a lot we can do in terms of road connections and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But you are saddled with the responsibility to go through with the consent decree, which includes public housing as well as, in my mind at least, workforce housing or affordable housing. So I think this is a topic that we ought to really stay focused on with all the other things you're charged with doing. But still, given the meeting last night over in Fred's ward, which didn't have anything particular to do to public housing, but has everything to do with the tumult about the increasing murders and the increasing crime. I think that this is one of the potential levers where we can have an impact. We can't control the board or the director, but we can control the planning. So I certainly think we should keep that in the back of our minds.
The Planning Commission has been pretty engaged with HACA. They want to try to work with them as early as possible for Eastport Terrace and Harbor House. And they've had one presentation from Melissa Maddox Evans, and they actually have another presentation in November about different funding opportunities. So that they've been pretty engaged, and we'll keep up with that, and we'll keep you posted on the kinds of things we're discussing with them.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We have a new project in Primrose School for a daycare at that corner at Spa and Hilltop, where access is always such a problem. So far, they have their forest stand delineation.
That's that vacant commercial property that's on the right hand?
That's right.
Yeah, thank you.
I see.
On the northeast side.
Across from the synagogue?
Yes. And that's pretty much all of my updates, unless there's any questions.
I guess you said, so on the Primrose schools, FSD approved. Do you have any number in terms of how many acres that would impact? Actually, this is just the FSD, I guess. So,
no, I don't know. I know there's 3 stands, and none of them are full of any really great trees, but there's a lot of vines and stuff like that. But I think this is going to be a pretty easy one.
Okay. Could you send me that FSD?
Nope.
FSD 2020-001. You want to see the plan?
Yeah. Is it tracked up now where we can actually look at?
No, but we have reason to hope that it will be next week. So don't take my dreams away from me. It should be. They have an agreement with our permit company has an agreement with another company. It's a long story, but we have a small ray of hope on that front.
Okay.
Watch the Finance Committee video from this morning.
That's our long-term plan.
Oh, okay.
Our long-term plan is to move to a different company.
Okay. Chris, you said that was your only update? The updates?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nash.
All right. Thank you.
And next up, we have legislation for committee. So we have O2120, which is the conveyance of city-owned property at 113 Cathedral Street. This is the one we discussed the last meeting, trying to get the property owner to include some language that would kind of make up for there'll be a loss of open space, the green grass, and they would be putting in parking spaces. So we did get some language. If you look at amendments 1 through 3, which the law office worked with the property owner to put together. And so 3 amendments. The first one is the main amendment, I think, that would address the concern of the committee. Require the property owner to, says they shall construct, especially maintain and repair a stormwater management system on the property, subject to Public Works approval. And the responsibilities run with the title of the property. And so the property owner that attended the meeting last month, he said he's happy with this language, and it looks like Amendment 2, I think, is just, I don't know if we have anybody from the law office online, but I'm guessing these last 2 items, the second one looks like it just deals with clarification. Third one includes additional language regarding the stormwater management system. Ms. Green.
I just wanted to let you know that Alderwoman Tierney's having trouble with her connection, and she sent a question through the chat box. So if you guys could look at the box, she has questions.
Yeah, she was asking if we have any response from the property owner on ideas. And so, yeah, like I said, he did, I haven't heard back in terms of specific ideas, but he did agree to this language and work with the law office on it. But I think he had his own kind of homework to do, research to do. It sounded like last time he said he was going to speak with the landscape architect to see what he could do on his property, if it could be perms or pavers or the rain garden in combination with some vegetation. So I'm not sure we have the answer. Yeah, I think this is worded broadly enough. Hopefully it'll include any of those such devices or measures.
I actually feel it's too broad, but I still have a strenuous objection to the entire process. The sole sourcing it to the adjacent residents, I feel is not a proper thing to do. I don't really feel the city is getting value for dollar, but this particular amendment takes it out of the control of the council and out of our sight too. Who knows what the Department of Public Works is going to agree to, because this is very nebulous. It's some stormwater management system subject to whatever somebody in Public Works thinks it ought to be. I know there are professional staff, and I know they know about stormwater management, but I'm having a lot of problems with nebulous language like this as regard to the mitigations for the Eastport Shopping Center, and with things that are in our performance management plan, which we have on our agenda for later on. I think we let things slip away way too easily. If we really want stormwater management, I think that the stormwater management plan should come back to us before we approve this, not just pass it off with no particular background. Nobody from Public Works has been involved in any of our deliberations on this. And I think that just hit cold, they'll do whatever suits them or the minimum or whatever. I don't know. I think we pass off our obligation to make sure these things go right too easily when we have amendments like this.
I can certainly understand that. I think it's a little bit tough in the sense that, let me see, we just got a message from Alderwoman Tierney. Agree, we're recommending in good faith that it will be built. Let's recommend that we don't recommend this property. So it sounds like Alderwoman Tierney may not want to recommend favorably. But to your remarks, though, Alderman Arnett, it's kind of tough in the sense that, especially with stormwater management, the problem is we don't necessarily know what will work on this site without doing a full analysis. And that would have to be done by a landscape architect or stormwater engineer, in the sense that you have to have particular soils that are going to work if you want to have an infiltration system, such as permeable pavers. And we don't know, this panel doesn't know exactly what the topography is out of that site to know what's going to work. We don't know in terms of the structure there, any kind of waterproofing is going to have to be installed, or what kind of excavation can happen. So it's kind of tough. And I think the one thing we could maybe specify would be in the inclusion, because I think I'd be more amenable to agreeing to removing the green space if we required the replacement of some kind of vegetation. I mentioned this to the adjacent property owners if they'd be open to having to plant a couple trees. Why that'll help to address, I think, at least the loss of green space in part. So, we could, I don't know what the feeling is of this body, but we could, we could include a section in here under the, be it further established and ordained by the city council that, and just list something else that we could perhaps be more specific to say that we like to see a couple of number of replacement trees installed, or
I guess I would rather postpone. We've already postponed this for 90 days at the last city council. I would rather wait before we take action until we have some more definitive analysis. Maybe Matt Waters or somebody can come and report to us at our next meeting, which is well within the 90 days, and tell us what kind of mitigation he thinks could be done there. I just feel that we way too readily pass off our concerns about these things, leave it to staff, and it's dropped on them sort of out of the sky without the benefit. We've discussed this now at least 3 times, and we've discussed that we want to get some specific stormwater kinds of things. I like trees because that also adds some green space and humidity and all of the absorbing of water and things like that, and provides a much, the space itself is really awful looking now. It's bleak. It looks like something you would expect to find in the backyard of a tenement in Brooklyn or something like that. So I do think we have some time to ask for Public Works to come in and give us a sense of what could be done there, rather than just sign off on it. Yeah, Ellie's saying that's her point, where are the checks and balances regarding environmental installation? And I know this is a small parcel, and so it's maybe making too big a deal out of a small parcel, but I just think that we're establishing a principle that we're not going to just fob this off and take whatever comes as the course of least resistance. And I don't mean to defame or impugn anybody in public works, but unfortunately, we've seen that happen. And so I'm loath to relinquish the powers, the few powers we still have, till we have a better sense of what the mitigation is going to be there.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's it's a very good point in the sense that we do have 90 days till it's going to come back to the council. So we have at least another one, maybe two environmental matters meetings. I don't want to hold this up beyond that time, because like you said, these are small properties, but it's really death by 1,000 cuts in terms of the water quality. So I think, and plus what we do for this, I think, it makes it come to mind that maybe we do need to have some kind of process where, because this is a small property, but we do more. I'm sure we have other properties in the city where if we potentially go in the future to surplus those properties, I think we want to make sure we have one, that it comes to the council, and two, that we have some clear assessment or analysis that's done to see what are the lost potential in terms of stormwater management or forest conservation expansion, that kind of thing. And
I think Ellie's confirming that with her chat comments. Frankly, I was struck the last time we talked about this and Director Gerald was on board. I'd really questioned the value of the Larkin lot as a parking lot as opposed to a potential plot where we could make that whole lot available for affordable housing. I don't think we should be thinking of the city affordable housing in terms of the Spa Road facility or some other gigantic thing. I think that it would really be ideal to put some affordable housing units in the midst of what are other more historic buildings and buildings that have more cost to them. Although I guess this is fairly close to Shaw. There's a lot of townhouses there, but it feels to me like we're not really pulling all of the thoughts together about how we're going to meet what we agreed to in the consent decree, how we're going to meet the affordable housing concerns. Now, I don't have as strong a feeling about the city's obligation to provide affordable housing as maybe you or Dewan or Mark had, possibly Brooks has. But if we're going to do it, let's try to figure out places where we can really do it and make a difference, incrementally instead of one big fell swoop, make all of Spa Road affordable housing, assuming we can even put residential housing on that lot. But again, to this point specifically, it seems like the least we could do is to have somebody from Public Works, I would assume Matt Waters, come and tell us what, in their expert opinion, could be done there as a mitigation for stormwater management and tree canopy.
Okay, so Ms. Green, could you make a note for the next Environmental Matters Committee meeting that we would like to, well, I guess actually well ahead of that time, could you notify, or maybe Ms. Director Guile might be able to do this as well, but if we could get some staff, some of the Public Works stormwater staff to come comment on this project in terms of is there some kind of stormwater management, what type of stormwater management facilities could be utilized by this property owner on this lot, which would drain to the city lot. And maybe that gets done as a part of a larger city project where, and this would be more for Director Guile, but a larger city project where we look at the Larkin lot and these other properties and these other lots to see, well, maybe we need to start tracking down grant money or using the watershed restoration fund money to convert these lots to have more, besides affordable housing, that is another option, but simply you can't use watershed money for that, but we could use it to put in permeable pavers and more trees on these actual parking lots. And so I don't know if we've done any kind of larger analysis in that sense for stormwater on our properties. But in any case, yeah, so if we get someone from Public Works, but also Ms. Green, we have a lot of landscape architects in planning and zoning. I don't know if Director Nash is on still, but it'd be nice if we could have somebody like Tom Smith from a landscape architect perspective, see what might be able to get done, as long as it's not going to take up too much of their time. But that might be a useful analysis.
So, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we postpone both 02120 and 02220, the adjacent parcel, till the next environmental matters where we can get some input from, it really feels like Public Works, Planning and Zoning, and the soon to be, by that time, would be Deputy City Manager.
Yeah, and I'll second that. And Ms. Green, you had your hand up.
Oh, yes. I was just wondering if you could send me an email. I can get it out to both directors for Public Works and Planning and Zoning, and that way they can ask whatever staff they need to do that for you.
I have some notes about that now. And I'd like to also hear more from Ellie, because this is her ward, and I know once you have hopefully we'll have a better connection with you next month. I'm just finishing this type. So all those in favor of postponing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Okay, and the next ordinance is 02220 for the.
I had included that in my motion to postpone.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. And the only difference with that property is we only own, it was like a foot wide strip. So, you know, there's still the overall concern of the loss of open space, green space, but it's not our green space that's getting removed. So, you know, I feel like I feel better about doing what we're doing with the other property. This one, a little less clear, although I think, yeah, we might as well, we'll see what Public Works has to say. We're planning zoning about this one as well. All right, so the one after that is 03220.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we approve favorably. It's pretty straightforward. It's rewording, but it's clear we're not wanting water skiers in Market Slip, amongst other things.
And this is coming out of our conversation about the kind of more omnibus ordinance that was introduced. And we had the harbor master here to talk about pulling some of the specific items out because she needed to do some additional research. So it's not going to impact Ward 7, but I do want to make sure we hear from we lost Alderman Tierney, but I think she was okay with this based on my memory from the last time we talked about this. Alderman Arnett, this also deals with the noise.
Yes.
We were speaking about, so it just references the noise levels established by the state.
And I recently had a constituent complain about noise levels across the water. So it seems like this is timely. As with most things in the city, we can pass legislation, but it's the enforcement that makes a difference. So there are affairs that go on down at the end of Bimby Beach that broadcast across Back Creek and are impacting people who live on the Ward 8 side of Back Creek along, I'm blanking on the name of the road. It's where Dick Franio lives and where Ellen used to live. why can't I think? Eastern Avenue.
Yeah.
And the response that I gave, which was reinforced by the city manager, is we don't normally just monitor noise. We only respond to noise when there's a complaint registered by a constituent, which was the case here. And then the police will come out, and if they do have decibel meters, if they remember to bring it, they can check the decibels. The real problem is water really tends to propagate for long distances, and it almost seems like amplify the impact of noise. And I think the 50 decibel within 50 feet measure is probably not going to satisfy most citizens, because that happens to be fairly loud. But I think referring to the state law is the smart thing to do here. We could be tougher than state law, but we'd have to justify why we are being tougher than state law. But the noise part of it, I think this is very responsive to the kinds of discussion we had at this committee with the harbor master, and I forget, was it Ashley was there from the Office of Law for that discussion? I think it was Ashley Leonard. But I think this is good legislation, and probably as good as we're going to get.
Okay. Yeah, I'll second it if I didn't already. Your motion. Okay. And Alderwoman Tierney has dropped off. So I guess all those in favor of recommending favorably?
Aye.
Say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. All right, motion carries. And
oops.
Next one is, oh, actually that was introduced by Alderwoman Tierney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, I lost my agenda. Okay, here it is.
Next one is R1720. That also was postponed for 90 days, but I do have a report on that, and I see Lynn Farrow is on the line. We had a very good meeting on this, and I can relay that, or we can let Ms. Farrow speak to it.
I'll leave that up to you, since you have comments you wanted to make.
My motion would be that we postpone consideration. It's been postponed by the council, but also as a result of my meeting this morning with Lynn and David Jarrell, I think we have a good game plan to move this forward. I strongly believe in this performance management system and in management in general. And I've taken a lot of time going page by page. And Lynn, I apologize. I just haven't gotten around to Xeroxing my sheets, but I will do that. And we agreed to seek other sources. There are other municipalities that have been doing this. Somebody's got a mute. I'm hearing an echo. Other municipalities that do this, but the inspiration, and Lynn, I was with Bob Agee this afternoon at Waterworks Park, and he said that the ICMA, this is right down their alley. They've got all kinds of stuff, and he'd be happy to help. But now that you're a member of ICMA, I think you can get right to them. But they've got manuals, the how to do manuals, and they've got experts that could come in. I don't know how much we can get gratis from ICMA, but I think that's a sterling place to go, and fairly quickly.
And I've downloaded several of those manuals and then a few samples as well from other jurisdictions. And so we will keep. You can't hear me.
Lynn, you're breaking up here.
some of the some samples from other jurisdictions. And so I will absolutely reach out to Bob Agee to see if he has some suggestions, but we are continuing to work through them. I'm not sure what we should do with the legislation for the current performance measures. I'm not sure that we will be able to actually make huge changes to them between now and, to those that we currently have, but certainly in FY22, we will have a different process. So that's up to the council. That's, I'm gonna.
Well, so what's the? So it sounds like you're potentially going to wait till next fiscal year. But what else? So what are the next? Because I think there is value to having. I think there's a lot of value to having these, and hopefully even what's been created so far would be helpful to departments and the council. But I do think that I know that for this committee, I think we had some specific additions that we wanted the departments to kind of draft up on their own, just to address some of the specific environmental programs that we felt weren't really addressed, and such as setup control, specific standards for that, and the tree canopy program, forest conservation, and stormwater management pertaining to new development. And so, I definitely would want to see those things included at some point. And I think we still have time for the next budget, but I guess you two have had more conversation about this. So Alderman Arnett, I saw your hand up.
Right. So, I won't vote for this if it still has the Office of Legislative Policy in there. That's an easy update and a redistribution, and that speaks to the very things, Mr. Chair, that you just referenced that this committee has talked about, wanting to strengthen some of those environmental things. That's the bailiwick of this committee. The rub is that this is going to be the document that will be the backbone for this next budget submission. That will be coming to us in April from the mayor, but the departments are going to presumably be using this starting any time now. I don't know when the finance director plans to send out the budget memo. That usually goes out in December. But I would hope that we could make some inroads on tweaking this. I certainly am not in favor of waiting until fiscal 22, although that's just June.
So I guess I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead. No.
No. I guess I didn't mean that we wouldn't do the changes until fiscal 22, but that we would make the changes for the fiscal 22 performance measures. And since we're almost halfway into this year, that we understand that this document is not perfect and that we have a lot of work to do, but this document would serve us for FY21 with the changes that you all have recommended currently. But then in FY22, we will work to develop performance measures based on a much more robust framework.
Okay. FY22 doesn't give us much of a lead because the budget memo is going to go out in December, and the mayor's budget has to be delivered to the council in April. So I feel there's some urgency to do some pretty significant tweaking up of this. And, in the nature of what you and David and I talked about this morning, I'm really hopeful that we could get ICMA to come in, or some other. You had mentioned a couple of people you knew, Lynn. That's fine with me. I don't care where it comes from. But for me, the measures are the major lacking element in this. I would like more consistency across departments, but the measures, for example, in finance, they said have the reconciliation calendar done by such and such a date. That's the benchmark. What's passing? And when we look at a department and we see they're not getting it done when they say they're supposed to get it done, that sends up some red flags. Do you need more budget? Why aren't you getting it done? Those sorts of things. So I know we all have a million different things on our plate. And unfortunately, management tends to take the tail end of priorities. But I think that's a problem. And I think that it's a false economy to leave that to the tail end. I think it should be right up front. And a high priority.
I agree with you completely. I agree with you completely that we need to start working on the performance measures up front prior to or as we are developing the budget for FY22. And I guess that's what I was saying. I'm sorry if you misunderstood.
So I do think these are very important. So I do thank you, Ms. Farrow, for putting these together, because I think for the council, it really is, these really, I think, can be a way for us to really ensure, we are tasked with overseeing the delivery of city services. And this really, I think, allows us to make sure that happens, but also to make sure that our policies are being implemented to the standards that we intended, right? And I think one, just as an example, because it's easy to quantify, is the sediment control program, where they have some metrics they have to report to the state, which include frequency of inspections, number of inspectors, average amount of fines and how much fines have been issued, and those kind of things they already really keep anyway. And that would, I think, really help show us, well, here are the total number of grading permits as an example, and here's the frequency and how many you're doing a day, yada, yada. And we can use that to really determine, well, do we need to change the law to make these inspections more efficient, or prioritize different types of inspections, or do we need to hire more staff or reorganize, whatever. I think so it's definitely very helpful information. And so I do absolutely still want to get something passed, because I think it would, even if it's not in a perfect state where, before ICMA, I think it'd be great to get their input, but I want to make sure we don't delay this too long, and we can always come back next year and do something more detailed with ICMA.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't see specific amendments coming from this committee. I know we talked about them. I'm not sure we're ready to put them forward today, but as I mentioned at the last council meeting, we postponed this for 90 days. Certainly, if we want to have, and I think, Lynn, this might be a great message to go out to all the committees. Let's take advantage of this 90-day hiatus. If any of the committees have amendments they want to put forward, do it now. First of all, I want to step back. You're absolutely right. Oh.
Just quickly on that point, though, because I want to get your thoughts on this too, because I'm not entirely sure I'm not entirely sure the committee should necessarily be making these specific amendments in terms of these specific standards. I don't know, curious what you think, but in terms of, because what I had relayed to City Manager Gerald was that here are these specific shortcomings we saw. We wanted standards for these programs, but I think there is value in having staff kind of develop them in their own words and their own experience, what they feel like they can report, and to get them thinking about it.
I agree with that, but I was pleased to see Lynn take note of your things you ticked off about the stormwater management things. I would hope that we would talk about some amendments that are more generic, as you suggest, but I think examples like you ticked off are really good ones to tell the staff the level that we're thinking about. I mean, and I particularly like the idea, if these are things that are already required to report to other levels of government, why not take advantage of that? I mean, just build that right in. So that makes a lot of sense to me. we're never going to, first of all, we do have to stop. And David was talking about what Lynn received. The inputs on this were not nearly as good as what we have now, believe me, and we should appreciate that. But I think that no good deed goes unpunished. We think we could make them better. So I think that the council, since we are one of the benefactors of this being a good product, a good system, really should put a little sweat equity. I don't have a strong feeling. I would like to ask how many of my colleagues have actually printed off these standards. And I would like to ask how many of those that printed it off and read it, how many have made notations? Because it's a pursuit of mine. I was a senior manager. Management is something that I think is very important. And it's okay if it isn't a thing for somebody else. If, one of the other old persons would be much more interested in fire suppression, good. That's why we have multiple different alderpersons. But for those who do have specifics, as you did, I would say that we ought to pitch in and help and show where we could make some refinements that would be low-hanging fruit. Put in there as a measure the things you already have to measure. What a concept.
Right. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think even for like the forest conservation program, right, we do have to submit reports to the state as well but I think we should build on that and have things even more detailed. I think we have to report on total acres of forest removed. But I think it'd be good for us to use it to our advantage. Say, how many acres did we actually protect above and beyond the state minimums, right? That really goes to show how we're doing a better job than even the surrounding jurisdictions or the state. And I think we can all, including staff, can and should be holding that up to say to the council when they come to talk to us, look, we're meeting this high standard that you've set, and I think that'd be useful to hear. So,
and there's other benefits too, Rob. Lynn and David and I had a really good sidebar discussion about the June city manager meeting, and I was talking about our conversation yesterday looking at the transportation numbers, and Lynn said, well, of course they're low for those lines. That's the bus lines that go to the shopping mall, so they are going to be low during COVID. But still, some simple things like this just really made things stand out. Why is shuttle 50% of revenue? And I think those are the kinds of things that we really need to be focusing on when this is part of the budget document. So I'm all in on, let's give whatever help we can give to make this the next step forward. And the time is short. We need to be doing things now.
And also the relation, I think, between this and the city manager's report, I think, is very close, because at least I think I'd like to see, at least for me, I think it'd be helpful to see some of that more of that data from these performance standards in the monthly manager's report, because that was, I remember when previous city manager Mounoff had his reports very long, and probably only very few people read them, but those of us who did, we could go to whatever section we'd wanted. And I remember in particular, since you mentioned transportation, they had a lot of data there. And even on crime, we've been having shootings recently, and we were able to go to the police section and find out how many, exactly what category of crime and what there was each month to see. And so that's really helpful for us to be able to develop policy. And I think those two documents are really go hand in hand.
I agree.
And for transportation, I'd really like to, and I don't know who I'm speaking to at this point, but I'd really like to see the data about, they have ridership information, but they don't have information like kind of real time. I'm assuming they can even get this, but real time information in the sense that what times of day are these particular routes most used? How many people are on the buses? Because I think that would help tell us, well, maybe we can get away with this route here. It only has, max 5 riders, and they have a huge bus. Maybe they can downsize, or we can say, well, maybe only during peak hours we have to have these huge buses. Maybe we can have small electric shuttles on demand for these certain off-peak times of the day, which would save us money just through the lack of lower fuel use. So those are kind of, I know I'm getting into your committee, Ellie, with the transportation, but I saw you joined us again. But there's definitely a lot of correlation here between our two committees. Ellie, did you have something you wanted to add? Are you able to hear us again?
I don't see a chat. I see Ellie's icon up, but to the resolution itself, which is the order of the day, I guess I would once again recommend we postpone to the next Environmental Matters Committee, but then have specific recommendations for the kinds of performance measures we would like to see added for the relevant environmental components. I really would like to see a draft or a recommendation from this committee that we redistribute the Office of Environmental Policy duties to the right place. At the meeting with David and Lynn, I suggested that we need to have performance measures for the city manager's office, particularly now that there's some work-related things that are coming with Jackie and Racine that we really want for environmental purposes, want updates on. I'd suggested we need them for the mayor's office, and I suggested we needed them for the city council. I think we might be a little more disciplined if we had some performance measures. Like how many times does your committee postpone taking action on legislation? And who's the culprit? Who's the culprit that keeps suggesting that? Get him off the council.
Well, I think I think you're absolutely right, and I think we have made some recommendations in the past for specific programs we wanted standards for, but we have not opined on. So I think we should include our recommendation to follow the new organizational structure. And so my other question, though, is, I guess, to Ms. Farrow, how would this, and to the city manager, but are you just going to create a new set of performance standards to attach to this? Because I'm not sure how we can amend an attachment, but are you going to be basically swapping it out with a new document at some point?
I'm not sure I have an answer to that question, but yes, if we make changes to it, then we would have to amend the entire document out and amend a new document in, would be my recommendation. I do also want to add that the city manager's report on a quarterly basis will include an update on the performance measures. So an update on the status of the performance measures. So you will see that in the city manager's report in the one coming in September.
Okay,
can I comment on that, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Lynn, my advice is that you not do a data dump. I think Rob is right about Mike Melanoff's report. I'd like to see some data in the quarterly reports, but I think it should be not all of it, but the things that you and the city manager believe you would like us to pay attention to. And, that's asking you to make a judgment, but that's your job. And
right. So the format will remain the same for the base of the report. The things that we think we should call to your attention. And then as an appendix, there will be an update to the performance measures on a quarterly basis. So you'll be able to, if you want, look at all of the performance measures and see where each department is on each of the benchmarks. Right. But yes, the base of the report will remain the things that we want you all to pay specific attention to, and it will continue to improve as we this last one was the first one. I'm
It'll
almost
improve
done.
as you get older persons to read it and give you helpful comments.
Right. I'm almost done. I'm almost done July, believe it or not. So I know so we will, we'll continue to improve. So we do want to hear back on the things that you think work. If there's more data, there is more data from the transportation department. Always, I can add more things. So, and I will do that and try to make the pictures as pretty as possible and no pie charts.
All right. Well, thank you. I'd like to, I guess at this point, would you like to make a motion to postpone along with the recommendation, Alderman Arnett? A recommendation for from the committee to represent the current organizational. Well,
I move
current
that
or
we
new organizational structure.
Postpone our comments on this till the next Environmental Matters Committee meeting, at which time we should make specific amendments to the relevant performance measures, environment-related performance measures, but also that we ask for the performance measure to be reconfigured to reflect the current organizational structure of the city.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, hearing no objections, this is postponed. Thank you, Ms. Farrow. And sounds like Alderwoman Tierney agrees. And that's the last for our legislative items. For general discussion, I'd like to ask Director Giles to give an update on from your office's standpoint.
Can you repeat that?
Hey, yeah, we just invited you. Just want to invite you to give a presentation on what your office has been working on, or anything else you want to talk about. The Creek Cabinet.
Absolutely. All right. So we're still working on EV chargers throughout the city. With actively engineering design is occurring at both Gotts Garage and that's the west end, where there's going to be a DC fast charger put in the west end and 2 L2s, and then there will be 4 L2 spaces at the Gotts Garage and 2 DC fast chargers. So hopefully we'll get those online within the next month. Just been a little bit of a challenge to find the best spot for them in order to reach infrastructure that's needed. Still have several others in the works. Looking at a site that's on the other side of the Treasury building, in between the Treasury building and the Firefighters Memorial. That is a state road, so coordinating with the state on that. I was contacted just yesterday by SP about Knighton Garage, putting some more in there and several other spots that they manage. So that's going forward. Historical sites within the historic district will, of course, have to go through HPC. We would like to put some downtown, obviously, but that will be a longer process. And then I will be working with the fleet manager on identifying cars this fall that we can replace with electric, depending on their budget. And then we'll have to make sure we form a strategic plan with the required funding for FY22, as far as replacing cars with EV. I'm working, and then with respect to that and other climate change and energy efficiency initiatives, the mayor recently joined the Climate Mayors Network, and this is a national network of mayors who work collaboratively, share information, and support one another with climate change energy efficiency initiatives. So they asked the climate officer or environmental policy officer to sit in on the monthly meetings with that group. And there's some EVA collaborative purchasing options that they have, I'm going to look into, as well as other initiatives. And there's no obligation to do anything by joining the Climate Mayors. It's really just a collaborative information sharing tool. But they do have some initiatives that you can sign on to certain letters supporting or advocating or against federal policies that affect cities and counties, as well as there's several opportunities to join in litigation, amicus briefs, things like that, that are supported by that network. So we just joined in September, and I sat in on the first meeting just last week. Still working on, I'm collaborating with public planning and zoning on Providence Point, getting the easement done there, and for the last tidying up of some outstanding issues so that they can move forward to design for the Providence villages of Providence Point. See what else? We're finishing up our greenhouse gas initiative inventory. Gracine's been working on that with a member of the Annapolis Environmental Commission. Our tree survey was just completed by the University of Vermont. This is an update to our tree canopy. It also identifies where are potential sites for tree planting, identifies areas that are vulnerable, others where we might want to start protecting trees. And Brian Adams, the city forester, is finishing his review. There's some data tweaks to do to it. And then this can be used as another GIS overlay. You can see where the trees are right now and where potential planting sites exist. Those are the main things we're working on right now. Of course, today we just had a meeting with David Jarrell and Planning and Zoning about transition to the new position of Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability, and where staff will fall and where duties will fall. And we have it. I think we have a pretty good plan. As we get working within this new framework, we may have to adjust some things, but it should be a smooth transition.
Good, very good. Hopefully that'll work its way into the performance standards as we just chatted about. And so I don't know if there will need to be, I guess there will need to be some new standards for that new office, but
right, and also for planning and zoning, there's some tweaks with regard to city forester. And what I did in preparation for that transition was provided Sally with all of Brian's duties, current duties, and the expenses associated with his position so that she can start her planning with performance measures and budget.
Okay, great. Yes, Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jackie, I just this afternoon earlier met with Bob Agee at Waterworks Park, but
right.
two weeks ago I took a trek out to Evergreen and to Savage River Lodge with him to sort of flesh out that concept. I've always been excited about the plan to environmentally use Waterworks Park, not just turn it open to a everybody come in and trash the place kind of thing. Bob has in mind maybe forming with Alliance for the Bay or some other big organization where we could be building environmental facilities, meeting facilities, but also things like out at Evergreen where they plant indigenous species and provide them and so forth. And, you know, I told Bob, I said, look, you're preaching to the choir. You sold me on this 12 years ago. I know the mayor went out to Evergreen and Savage River, and I know we've got some budget issues and also an election coming. But what's your sense of the chances that we could give that some oomph? It is just absolutely gorgeous. The trees are starting to change, but it's just a lovely, peaceful place and a tremendous resource for the city. And I would much rather see it developed as an environmental resource than as a public park kind of thing and damage the ecosystems out there. But I didn't know where you were falling on that.
I don't think I made up my mind exactly, though. It is a park, and people do use it. And that's for further discussion, I think, to really evaluate the pros and cons of that. Of course, along with probably everybody on the committee, I've been out to the site with Bob Agee, and I was just there probably a month ago with him, walking it and talking to him about his ideas. And there's some very, very good ideas there. I know that Parks and Recreation has some ideas as well. And I told Bob what we really need to do is to map out all these ideas from not just Bob, but from Parks and Recreation and the mayor's ideas, and then prioritize them and see what we can come up with. So I think it's a fairly big exercise and something I talked to David Jarrell about, and we will be looking at in the near future.
Yeah, it's certainly an intriguing idea. I mean, the park right now is kind of split. The western half is more oriented on the active recreation, the mountain biking, and which goes up to the solar park. And then the eastern part, which is behind the locked gate, is not passive necessarily, but passive in the sense that it's oriented towards fishermen and women, and also some hiking in the area up on that hill. And that's where some of the wetlands of special state concern are. And Ardenet's right. I mean, it's such a gorgeous place. And you know, I've been there quite frequently during the pandemic because it's just, people just don't know about it. It's a lot of our other parks have been incredibly crowded during this time, but even that's seen an uptick. But I know, but yeah, once you have those wetlands of special state concern, it gets challenging. I think more challenging than typically it is in terms of trying to have a use for the property. But I do kind of like the idea of passive education component. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think we'll be able to get too much done with that before the next election. I know, and this kind of dovetails into something. I know, Director God, you've heard kind of my list of priorities for at the Environmental Commission, and it's one thing I want to bring up with, well, I know, unfortunately, Ellie's not, oh, there she is here, with my colleague Ross. If talk a bit, maybe at the next meeting with Director Guile in terms of just overall environmental priorities, maybe of the committee, but also to hear from Director Guile what priorities are moving forward, because we don't have too much time left here. And that also might be a good opportunity to kind of help determine and hear more about the direction of the new organizational structure. And I'm guessing we're going to need, has that charter amendment taken effect yet?
No, it's November 3rd.
Right, it has to wait 52
November
days
3rd.
after passage.
So in any case, I guess in terms of priorities, is that something that the committee would want to have a discussion about?
I do. I see Ellie's texting, chatting with us. She would too.
Oh, I see. She has a question about the tree budget, which I know has been cut by the council probably for a number of budgets in a row here. And my impression is it's kind of emergency only. And I'm guessing that we just probably find money wherever we can out of the one-time use fund, I'm guessing, to fund for these things.
Yeah, I spoke with David and Sally about that today, that budget is, really it's not a budget anymore. I mean, there's barely enough money there to even do emergency work. David is going to talk to Jody Dickinson about some transfer money to planning and zoning to create a tree budget, no matter how small. but also we had an issue where we have tree plotting software that we use for assessing tree canopy, finding planting areas, and overall just tree management within the city. It was invested in about, let's say, 4 years ago. The city spent about $26,000 to develop it, called Planet Geo. And the renewal period, there's initial licensing period of 3 years, which is due to be paid again on November 10th. And at the moment, OEP doesn't have even $4,000 to pay for that. And it's now an annual fee of $4,000. We got 3 years in the beginning. But that would be, a waste to lose that software and the investment that went into it. So David's going to talk to Jody about some additional funds for that software.
Which software is that again?
It's called Planet Geo, and it's a tree plotting, plotting, management tool. And it's something that was invested in about 4 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, and the funds, hopefully we can get that sorted out, because I've noticed a number, and I'm wondering, I don't think we have too much money at all right now in the Forest Conservation Fund from the fee in lieu, is that right?
Well, for fee in lieu for critical area, we do. The other fund, we don't.
Right.
The general tree planting one, we do not. Where we had the extra money was in the fee in lieu for the critical area, and that is the fund for which we now have more flexibility to spend. It used to be just in the critical area and just for trees, but we just finished the MOU with the Critical Area Commission. It was approved that we can use those funds for planting in other areas, for property acquisition, for boundary surveys, and a host of other restoration projects. We have about 80,000, 81,000 in that fund. I think that's the one you're thinking of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can you explain that more, the Chesapeake Bay Trust Agreement?
So the Chesapeake, the Critical Area Commission does allow for other uses of that fund if there is an agreement between the city and the Critical Area Commission. And so we've worked on it for over a year, the terms on that agreement, which now allows tree planting other uses apart from tree planting with those funds that are gathered. I'm sorry, I'm in the car with dogs. And so that went into effect October 7th. And it allows for not only tree planting in the critical area, but tree planting in other areas, and boundary surveys, which often are very costly and something that when someone's trying to make a conservation easement, that can be detrimental if you don't have the money to do a boundary survey, which could be up to $5,000 or more, depending on the size of a property. And it allows for restoration projects. So we could use some of that money to do a stream restoration or step pool, various different things with BMPs. And then it also allows for property acquisition. We really don't have, you're not going to buy very much with $80,000. And that's the sum total of what we have right now. But it does allow for property acquisition as well.
Okay. And so the committee is aware on a related topic. I don't believe I've copied you on this yet, but as we talked about at a previous meeting, if you recall, the legislation that created the Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability included a provision that we had ended up removing that would require permits for any tree over 24 inches anywhere in the city. And and the committee did put in a request for that legislation to be developed, and the law office has sent me a draft. I can share that with the committee members. So it would, it also included some measures in there to address some of the enforcement issues, because I know we've had some no fault of the inspector, but just that it was difficult to get adequate enforcement, where, you know, they'll often just pay the fine, or the tree that ends up being removed is just no way it can be replaced because it's so large and established. I think it was in Eastport, was it, where a large tree was removed without a permit. And and hopefully this legislation and Director Gott, if you have any recommendations on that, we'd be happy to include it.
Well, one thing that I did speak with Brian Adams about it, and there's a kind of a 3 strikes and you're out provision in there. If you have not obtained a permit 3 times and took down a tree, then that company cannot receive a permit to do work in the city for a 12-month period. Since it's already the law that they can't do that, we felt that was rather generous, and discussed perhaps 2 strikes and you're out. The first strike being, you know, you're warned, and then the second time. And I forwarded to you a couple comments on just wording to make sure we're crystal clear about what is intended. The other concern was, how do we enforce that? You know, how do we track how many times this violations occurred? Because currently, when a permit comes in, there's no check to see if there's been a violation by this company before. Right.
And Dr. Nash mentioned earlier that they're looking to get a new permit tracking software, possibly. I think that's what she said. So if that happens, I wonder if there might be some capability to in that software to, you know, essentially have records be associated with the contractors as well. So you could. Yeah,
there's a flag that's generated when that permit is submitted.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was one concern, is how do you enforce it? How will we know? And who will be responsible for figuring that out?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think probably best if it would be kept in the permit software somewhere, but yeah, we can figure out that detail. So any other questions for Director Guild?
Thank you for the report.
Yeah, thank you for the report.
Oh, you're welcome. There's one last thing I will mention, Ross, is we also finalized a agreement with the Chesapeake Bay Trust to provide funding through their Anne Arundel County watershed restoration grant making. Anne Arundel County has already participated in this. They use their watershed, their equivalent of the watershed restoration fund, to put money in, and that is an authorized use of our watershed restoration fund to put money into a grant making program for restoration projects. So we put in for this grant cycle that the RFPs just went out on October 15th, $300,000 we allocated towards projects so we could fund a number of small projects, $50,000 projects, to $100,000 ones, and $200,000 ones, a mix. What the trust does is they develop the RFP after we review it before it goes out. They solicit the bids, review them, do the first cut, and then bring in the city to look at which projects we would pick from our allocated funds. And then they manage the contract as well to the finish. So it's a grant management and solicitation tool. And when the RFPs went out the other day, I got all kinds of, we're so glad the city is doing this. Thank you so much, from the nonprofits that do restoration work.
Yeah, I think it's it's been working really well, the county. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty good size. It's a pretty good pool of money. I think that'll be able to fund some decent, a commercial property or a church or something wanting to put in a rain garden. But I think with the county, I'm guessing it's a similar thing with ours, is where they have to have some kind of water quality component to them in order to get the grant money. But I'd also suggest that it'd be nice if we could set aside a certain portion of that money to address maybe things that aren't necessarily, or maybe this should come out of the watershed fund, but I'm just thinking how to address projects where on private property, they may have some kind of drainage issue or concern, where you could get some water quality benefit, but because it's private property, the city is not going to get involved. But
right.
And this, I think, would be a great pool of money for them to be able to, because I'm getting complaints and a lot of complaints about people just having, granted, some of it's just soggy backyards, which we can't do much about, but some of it's where they do have water entering into the house. And I think if they had money to put in some kind of infiltration system and rain garden on their properties, it'd be nice if we could have that to mention to the residents that hey, you could submit a grant application for this money, and that way you can do the work on private property.
The way this grant is set up, this particular one, it doesn't allow for that. We might be able to get involved with some other CDT grants that allow it on private property by a home, like a single homeowner, but they're looking at kind of bigger for the bang sort of project. And I know that's what Public Works is looking for as well. Projects that just complement our WIP program and can get us some credits.
So does it have to be public property then? And so or can it be put on, can these measures be installed on private property?
This could be private property as well, but they're not really looking at the private homeowner type of situation.
Okay. So could, for example, Watergate, or I'll use something in my word. So could Annapolis Rose Apartments, which doesn't have any kind of stormwater management, could they go ahead and apply for this in order to put some kind of facility on their property?
I really don't, but I don't know. I have to go back and reread this proposal to see what the limitations are on it. So I'm trying to think, I think a lot of it depends on what type of, it's more of the type of control they're thinking of and how big it is and how much benefit it actually will generate. But let me look into that to get the answer for that.
Okay, and I see a question from Ellie having to deal with a related question. I guess she wants to, can we do this for Section 8 housing? Would they be able to apply for money to do something similar on their properties?
No, I don't see why they couldn't. I don't think that's been done yet. So let me confirm that as well. But I don't see that. I mean, who would apply for that? Would it be HACA, or who would do it?
Yeah, it'd have to, I guess it'd ultimately be the property owner, not the tenants.
Yeah.
Or maybe a community association if there is one.
It's kind of a novel idea. So let me look into that one too, Rob.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, that's one of the, and the related issue with these old, Ellie said yes, HACA. And HACA is kind of similar to the HACA properties, but also these apartments that I've mentioned that have zero treatment. I've been trying to wrestle with a way to incentivize or require them to provide stormwater treatment on their properties. And because honestly, I don't even see them, unless they're conscientious, I don't see them really even wanting to apply for these, to spend the time to apply for these grants. So I think at the same time, we need to use the watershed restoration, the stormwater fee to help kind of be the stick, I guess, in some ways, to encourage them to apply for these grants, and maybe tie that because if they do apply for grants and actually put in these measures, they would have a reduced stormwater fee.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So any other questions for Director Gild?
No, but you might want to listen to this while we were talking. I got an email from Debbie Dillon who says that Mears Marina around the corner from me is under contract. The rumor is they sold to Safe Harbor Marinas, which is an international company the largest investor in marinas in the world, apparently. So I looked at some of their properties, and it's marinas surrounded by high-rise developments. So, yeah, and they don't have access to the water from the public.
Of course
We're
not.
under attack.
Ross, I guess you're going to stick around for a while.
Yes, so. I'm going to buy a condo there.
Which marina is this?
Mears Marina, right around the corner on Chester, between 6th and 5th Street or 4th Streets on Chester Avenue.
Okay. All right. Let's see a big oh no from Ellie. Any other questions comments for Director Godd?
Nope, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Director Godd, for your time. Anything else for the good of the order?
Move we adjourn so I can go to my 4 o'clock meeting.
All right. Is that a motion?
Yes.
All right. So, all right, I'll second that motion. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Don't forget, Board of Appeals tonight at 7.
Meeting adjourned.